I never thought I'd be one of those women with a crazy ex story, but here we are. You know those TikToks where people share their "this is how I found out he was cheating" moments? Well, mine's a doozy, except it wasn't just cheating. It was straight-up financial fraud. Ryan and I met at a friend's housewarming in Pacific Heights. He was this tall guy with a smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. Works in finance, drives a Tesla, the whole 9 yards. Our first date was at this cute little wine bar on Union Street, and I swear it was like something out of a rom-com. We clicked immediately. Fast forward a year and a half, and we're planning our wedding at the Palace of Fine Arts. I'm knee-deep in Pinterest boards. He's talking about our honeymoon in Bora Bora, and everything seems perfect. Too perfect, as it turns out. I should have seen the red flags. The weekend trips to Vegas with his college buddies, the way he'd dodge questions about his credit card statements, how he'd get weirdly quiet whenever I'd bring up combining our finances after the wedding. But love makes you stupid, am I right? I was busy climbing the corporate ladder at my investment firm, had just gotten a sweet promotion, and was feeling on top of the world. I had a healthy savings account, over $100K, that I'd been building since my first job out of Berkeley. I was proud of that nest egg. It represented years of ramen dinners, passing on designer bags, and grinding away at a job that often had me working until midnight. So when I noticed $50,000 missing from my account, I literally felt the blood drain from my face. At first, I thought it was identity theft. I called my bank in a panic, only to find out the transfer had been authorized from my home IP address using my login credentials. That's when things started getting weird. Ryan suggested it might be a glitch, and that we should wait a few days to see if the money reappeared. Something in his voice set off alarm bells. Maybe it was the way he couldn't look me in the eye, or how he kept checking his phone while we were talking about $50,000 freaking dollars missing from my account. I waited until he left for work the next day and did some digging. Found nothing concrete, just more suspicions. His browser history had been cleared recently. There were text messages from numbers I didn't recognize, and a stack of mail he'd been keeping in his desk drawer, unopened envelopes from collection agencies. That's when I decided to hire Mitch, a private investigator my firm sometimes uses for background checks. Best $2,000 I've ever spent. Turns out, Ryan wasn't in finance, at least not anymore. He'd been fired 6 months ago for ethical violations. Translation: he tried to skim from client accounts. He'd been pretending to go to work every day, but was actually gambling online, or making trips to casinos. And those weekend trips to Vegas, they weren't just boys being boys. He'd racked up massive debts with some very unpleasant people. The worst part? Mitch found evidence that Ryan had been watching me enter my banking passwords, had set up keyloggers on our shared laptop, and had systematically drained my savings to pay his gambling debts. The $50K was just the latest and largest withdrawal. When Mitch showed me the video of Ryan meeting with some sketchy-looking guys in a parking garage, handing over what looked like a thick envelope of cash, I felt like I was going to throw up. This wasn't my fiancé. This was a stranger wearing his face. I'm not typically a confrontational person, but something in me snapped. I canceled all our wedding arrangements, goodbye, $5K deposit, froze all my accounts, and changed the locks on my apartment. Then I called my cousin, who's a lawyer, and had him draft up the nastiest cease and desist letter you've ever seen. When Ryan came home that night, he found his stuff in boxes on the doorstep and me sitting on the steps, waiting. "What's going on?" He had the nerve to ask, like he didn't know. I just handed him Mitch's report, complete with photos, bank statements, and a detailed timeline of his activities. I'll never forget the look on his face. Not shame, not regret, but anger that he'd been caught. "You had me followed? What kind of trust is that?" he spluttered. I laughed in his face. "Trust? You stole $50,000 from me to pay your gambling debts. You're lucky I'm not calling the cops right now." He tried everything, crying, begging, promising to get help, even threatening me. But I was done. I told him he had 24 hours to return my money, or I'd be filing charges for fraud and theft. "I can't," he finally admitted. "It's gone. I gave it to some guys I owe in Vegas." That was 3 months ago. Since then, I've been rebuilding my life piece by piece. I got most of my money back through my bank's fraud protection. Thank God I had documentation, filed a police report, and started seeing a therapist to process the betrayal. As for Ryan, last I heard he's couch surfing with whoever will take him, being hounded by debt collectors and washing dishes at some diner in Oakland. His credit score is in the toilet, and those Vegas businessmen are still looking for the rest of what he owes them. I've turned my experience into something positive. I started a side hustle as a financial security consultant, helping other women protect themselves from financial abuse. It's been healing to transform my pain into purpose. Sometimes I look back at our engagement photos and wonder if any of it was real, or if I was just a mark from the beginning. But then I remember I'm one of the lucky ones. I found out before we got married, before we had kids, before our finances were legally tied together. So here's my advice. Protect your passwords like they're the nuclear codes. Run a credit check on your partner before getting serious, and always, always trust your gut when something feels off. And if any of you are dating a guy named Ryan who's 6'2", has a scar above his right eyebrow, and claims to be a financial advisor, run for the hills, girl. Smile. Emoji. Updated. So many of you asked for updates in the comments, and honestly, there's been a lot going on these past few weeks. Grab your popcorn, folks. Remember how I mentioned Ryan was washing dishes at some diner? Well, apparently he got fired from that job too. My friend Jess spotted him there having a meltdown when his manager caught him trying to steal from the register. Classic Ryan, never learning his lesson. But here's where it gets wild. Last Tuesday, I was having lunch with a client at Tartine Bakery when guess who walks in? Ryan looking like absolute trash. Wrinkled clothes, bags under his eyes, that once perfect hair, now greasy and unkempt. He didn't see me at first, which gave me the chance to watch him count change to buy a single coffee. Part of me felt a twinge of pity, but then I remembered the $50K, and that feeling vanished real quick. When he finally spotted me, his face went through this whole journey, shock, embarrassment, then this weird fake confidence. He actually had the audacity to come over to my table. "Amber, we should talk," he said, like we were just having some minor disagreement about where to go for dinner. My client, this badass woman who runs her own tech company, looked him up and down and said, "Is this the gambling ex, honey? He's even more pathetic than you described." I nearly spit out my latte. Ryan's face turned the color of a fire truck, but he kept pushing. "I've changed. I'm getting help for my addiction. I miss you." Y'all, I wish I could say I was super mature and just walked away, but nope. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "That's nice. I miss my $50,000. Guess we're both disappointed." He tried to give me some sob story about how he was sleeping in his car, how the debt collectors were threatening him, how he needed just a little help to get back on his feet. My client excused herself to take a call, bless her, and I decided to hear him out, mostly out of curiosity. Turns out those Vegas guys weren't just regular casino managers. Ryan had gotten involved with some seriously sketchy loan sharks, and they were done being patient. He showed me texts that were straight up threatening. For a second, I almost felt bad for him. Then he dropped the bomb. "I need to borrow some money. Just 10 grand to get these guys off my back. I'll pay you back, I swear." The fact that he thought I would give him one more penny after what he did. I laughed so hard the entire cafe turned to stare. "Are you actually insane?" I asked him. "Or do you just think I am?" He got desperate then, started saying how he'd always loved me, how the gambling was a disease, not a choice, how he'd do anything to make it right. "Anything?" I asked. His face lit up with hope. Poor, delusional Ryan. "Then return my money. All of it. Today." "I told you I can't," he practically shouted. I gathered my things to leave. "Then we have nothing to talk about." That's when he grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but enough to make me freeze. "You don't understand what these guys will do to me," he hissed. Lucky for me, the manager saw what was happening and came over. Ryan let go immediately, trying to play it cool, but the manager wasn't having it. "Sir, I need you to leave. Now." As security escorted him out. He kept looking back at me with this mixture of anger and desperation that sent chills down my spine. I called an Uber instead of walking back to my office just to be safe. That night, I got a string of texts from him, alternating between apologetic, "I'm so sorry for grabbing you," and threatening, "You'll be sorry when something happens." To me. I blocked his number and called my lawyer cousin again, who helped me file for a restraining order the next morning. The hearing was yesterday. Ryan showed up looking even worse than at the cafe, like he hadn't slept in days. The judge granted the order after hearing the evidence and seeing the texts. Ryan isn't allowed within 500 feet of me, my home, or my workplace for the next year. As he left the courthouse, he shouted that this wasn't over. Charming, right? On a more positive note, my financial consulting business is taking off. I've been featured on 2 podcasts talking about financial safety for women, and I'm working with a local women's shelter to develop a workshop on recognizing signs of financial abuse. It feels really good to be helping others avoid what happened to me. I've also started dating again, very, very cautiously. This guy Jake from my rock climbing gym asked me out for coffee. He's a pediatric nurse, drives a beat-up Subaru, and splits the check on dates. After Ryan's flash and fakery, Jake's authenticity is refreshing as hell. What's really crazy is how many women have reached out with similar stories after hearing me on those podcasts. Financial abuse is way more common than I realized. One woman's husband had been opening credit cards in her name for years. Another had her inheritance gambled away by her boyfriend. It's terrifying how often this happens. My therapist says I'm making good progress, but I still have trust issues to work through. I check my bank accounts obsessively now, and I've had nightmares about finding all my money gone. It's hard to feel safe again after someone violates your trust like that. Oh, I almost forgot the most ironic part. Remember how Ryan claimed to work in finance? I got a call from his former employer. I'd reached out during my investigation. Turns out he was fired for trying to use client funds to cover his gambling losses. History repeating itself, I guess. The firm decided not to press charges at the time, a decision they're now regretting since I'm not the only victim who's come forward. Last Friday, 2 other women contacted me through the podcast host. Both had dated Ryan and both had mysteriously lost money while with him. We've all filed police reports now, and there's enough evidence for the DA to pursue charges. Ryan could be facing actual jail time for fraud and theft. The detective working the case called me this morning with an update. They found evidence that Ryan has done this before in other states. California isn't his first rodeo. He's been operating under slightly different names, Ryan Thompson, Ryan Thomas, Ryan Thomason, but with the same MO. Charm vulnerable women, gain access to their finances, drain their accounts to feed his gambling addiction, then disappear when things get hot. I feel sick thinking about how calculated it all was, how he chose me, pursued me, and planned it all from the beginning. Was anything real? Did he ever actually care about me at all? These are the questions that keep me up at night, but during the day I'm focused on moving forward. I'm helping other women, I'm rebuilding my savings, and I'm learning to trust my instincts again. The other night, Jake asked me why I carry a separate dummy wallet when we go out. When I explained, he didn't think I was paranoid or damaged. He thought I was smart. After what you've been through, he said, I'd probably sleep with my money under my pillow. It's small moments like that that give me hope. Not everyone is Ryan. Not everyone is out to take advantage. There are good people out there. You just have to be careful finding them. I'll keep you all posted if anything else happens with the case against Ryan. For now, I'm just taking it one day at a time, being extra cautious with my heart and my wallet. Final update. It's been 6 months since my last post, and what a wild ride it's been. I promised a final update when things were settled, so here it is. Ryan pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud. Turns out I was just one of 7 women he'd scammed across 3 states. The judge showed zero sympathy and sentenced him to 5 years. The look on his face when the verdict came down, priceless. For once, he couldn't charm or lie his way out of the consequences. As for me, life's actually pretty amazing. My financial consulting business has grown into a full-fledged company with 2 employees. We've helped over 100 women secure their finances and recognize the warning signs of financial abuse. I even got invited to speak at a conference in New York next month. And Jake? He proposed last weekend at Land's End, overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge. The ring is simple, nothing flashy like the enormous diamond Ryan gave me, but it's perfect. More importantly, Jake showed me his complete financial history before proposing: credit score, student loans, savings, everything. Total transparency. When you know what real love looks like, you can't settle for anything less. Sometimes I think about how grateful I am that I caught Ryan when I did. As horrible as losing that money was, it saved me from a lifetime of deception. Now I'm helping other women avoid the same trap. I've found genuine love, and my future's looking brighter than ever. Oh, and that $50K, between the restitution order and my side business, I've more than made it back. The best revenge really is living well. Wink emoji.